So here's something that reportedly blindsided almost everyone inside the palace. Prince William, according to multiple sources, has quietly become the sole guardian of a private royal estate, so deliberately hidden that most royal historians allegedly had no idea it existed until a fortnight ago. And the way Camilla and her Wes and Tom Parker Bowles are said to have discovered, it has apparently triggered a level of fury behind palace walls that longtime staff describe as unlike anything in a generation. This isn't tabloid embroidery, it's coming, insiders suggest, from people who were actually in the rooms when the sealed documents were finally opened. And once you see what was transferred, what Queen Elizabeth II had reportedly spent years quietly assembling, and what Camilla's side of the family had allegedly been planning to do with these very same properties, the whole thing stops looking like an ordinary inheritance and starts looking more like a chess match whose final move was made from beyond the grave. Before we go any further, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss updates as more of this reportedly surfaces. Let's begin where this story actually starts, which is 1944. The Second World War is still tearing across Europe. Britain is gripped by existential uncertainty, and King George VI, according to archival accounts, quietly acquires a property folded deep into the Chiltern Hills, straddling the border of Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire. It was known as the Cedar Estate, and from the moment it changed hands, it was seemingly designed to vanish. No public registry listing, no press notice, no ceremonial acknowledgement. For more than 80 years, the story goes, the Cedar Estate lived only in the hushed conversations of senior courtiers, a shadow property known to almost nobody and shielded by everyone who did know. And that's the first question worth sitting with. Why would the royal family reportedly maintain a secret estate for 8 decades? What could possibly be inside that demanded that level of concealment? The answer, according to internal briefing notes, said to have circulated among royal correspondents on the morning of February 3rd, 2026, apparently left even the most seasoned historians momentarily lost for words. The Cedar Estate is said to contain a private chapel with an engraved memorial vault naming royal family members who served in armed conflict, archival chambers, reportedly housing 186 oak chests packed with personal wartime correspondence and confidential royal communications, 72 previously undisclosed royal portraits, allegedly including never-before-seen oil paintings of King George VI and Princess Margaret, and perhaps most extraordinary of all, 14 sealed audio recordings said to capture Queen Elizabeth II in private conversation with figures like Winston Churchill and Nelson Mandela. One archivist who reportedly spent decades inside the royal collection described it in a single unforgettable line. This, he allegedly said, was not a museum of history. It was the raw, unfiltered architecture of royal memory itself. Now here's what reportedly makes this even more striking. Between 2017 and 2021, sources suggest Prince William had been quietly visiting the Cedar Estate on private weekends. Not as a guest, not for ceremony. He allegedly walked the cedar groves with the Queen, reviewed wartime letters, personally catalogued naval dispatches, refiled hundreds of soldiers' letters, and even repaired the moisture control systems in the archival rooms. This was not duty for the cameras. This, insiders suggest, was stewardship by conviction, and the Queen apparently noticed. In a handwritten annotation, said to be tucked inside what's described as the Covenant Trust, she reportedly wrote, "He will inherit more than the crown. He will inherit the silence that preserved it." Those words, allegedly, were no accident. They read like a declaration. And now we have to talk about the legal machinery that reportedly made this possible, because it's as remarkable as the estate itself. The Cedar Estate, according to these accounts, sits outside the Crown Estate and outside the Duchy of Cornwall. Instead, it's said to exist under a private instrument described as a Covenant Trust, created in 2020, filed under a charter seal, and witnessed by the Queen's personal solicitor, a constitutional advisor, and a notary from the Royal Archives. The trust reportedly carried a delayed activation clause designed to trigger only after 2 conditions were met: the conclusion of the Queen's state funeral and the moment William was publicly recognized as heir to institutional responsibility. Both sources say have now been satisfied. The transfer, according to the reported statement, passes the Cedar Estate into William's full and exclusive guardianship, effective immediately. Simple words, irreversible consequences. But here's where the story reportedly shifts from inheritance to confrontation, because not everyone is said to have received the news gracefully. Multiple sources allege what palace watchers had suspected for a while, that Camilla and Tom Parker Bowles had for years been persistently angling to bring the Cedar Estate under their influence. Beginning in late 2024, Camilla is said to have promoted internally something she called the Windsor Cultural Legacy Centre. On paper, it sounded dignified: gourmet retreats, literary salons, small guided tours through the cedar groves. Beneath the surface, insiders suggest the ambitions were far less sentimental. Tom Parker Bowles allegedly looked at the Cedar Estate and saw something else entirely. Private memos reviewed by royal insiders reportedly described a Michelin-grade tasting restaurant inside the old hunting lodge, an artisanal food label trading on the estate's name, and exclusive supper affairs for select guests. A commercial operation, critics would say, dressed in the clothing of royal heritage. Then came October 2025 and a leaked briefing note that reportedly changed the temperature of everything. Tom Parker Bowles' legal advisors, according to the leak, had been exploring whether parts of the estate could be reclassified under public heritage law, arguing that its wartime origins justified cultural protection status. Had it worked, that reclassification would have weakened William's exclusive claim and potentially cracked open the door to shared management. So ask yourself this: does that sound like reverence for a sacred royal legacy, or does it sound like a commercial takeover wearing a heritage mask? In November 2025, Camilla reportedly hosted a private reception near Henley-on-Thames, gathering heritage donors, food critics, and art historians. Officially, it celebrated rural sustainability, but one guest allegedly called it a trial balloon, a dry run for a public-private stewardship model that would let outside donors share control of the Cedar Estate. William, sources say, learned of the gathering and politely but firmly declined to take part. He held to the Queen's original vision without equivocation. 3 weeks later, according to these accounts, he activated the Covenant Trust. The Cedar Estate, though, was not the only battleground. On January 31st, 2026, the Land Registry reportedly updated to reflect a second transfer Camilla had not seen coming. Northacre Hall, a sprawling 1,200-acre heritage property threaded through Wiltshire's ancient hedgerows. Historically a lesser-known royal retreat, it had allegedly hosted hunting weekends and sensitive diplomatic gatherings during the late Queen's reign. What reportedly makes the Northacre transfer remarkable is its timing. Documents dated just weeks before the Queen's passing are said to show she had formally reclassified the hall from a shared Crown asset into a personal sovereign holding, ensuring she could pass it privately through her will rather than through institutional succession. In one appendix, she reportedly wrote, "Let Northacre remain with the child who bears the burden of our future. Let it be not merely shelter, but sanctuary." The decision, sources claim, quietly bypassed both King Charles and Princess Anne. According to palace archivists, this was allegedly the first personal transfer of its kind in generations, executed in near total secrecy, with only a couple of living witnesses said to be aware of the codicil. The sealed envelope reportedly bore 3 words on its face: "For the reign after me." But Camilla, insiders suggest, had not been idle. Leaked notes allegedly confirmed that by 2023, she and Tom Parker Bowles had been lobbying discreetly to fold Northacre into a royal culinary heritage venture, presented publicly as a farm-to-table revival, but backed privately by luxury investors. The plan reportedly included a boutique hotel, a heritage cooking school, and a full rebranding of the estate as a luxury Windsor destination. One courtier allegedly summed up the moment with devastating precision. Camilla believed she had soft-bought the estate through influence. The Queen, they said, outmaneuvered her from beyond the grave. What reportedly followed was a careful campaign of whispers and quiet pressure. Anonymous think pieces allegedly began appearing in late 2025, suggesting the monarchy had overinvested in heritage assets and needed to recalibrate. In a final push, Tom Parker Bowles, is said to have attempted a lease inquiry on one of Northacre's orchard tracts, claiming it was unused land. The request, sources say, was promptly denied on inheritance protection grounds. Palace insiders reportedly described Camilla's reaction not as anger, but as something colder. Fury, they suggest, of being outflanked by a woman no longer alive to argue with. Now we arrive at what may be the most emotionally charged chapter of all. In mid-January 2026, Princess Anne is said to have carried out a forensic review of the Queen's private correspondence. What she reportedly found, folded 3 times inside a leather folio marked with a W, was a codicil unlike anything the family had seen. It concerned a discreet property in the Chiltern Hills, reachable only by a private drive miles from any main road, allegedly acquired decades earlier as an off-book reserve for direct heirs, insulated from Parliament and public scrutiny. The Queen's directive, reportedly in her own hand, was unambiguous and deeply personal. "I entrust this land to my grandson William, in full title and spirit," she is said to have written, "free of encumbrance, free of shadow. Let it remain immune to politics, immune to scandal. This land is a covenant, not a commodity." That phrase, immune to scandal, was reportedly no idle flourish. Sources suggest the Queen had grown wary of the controversies orbiting parts of the family and wanted her legacy to have moral insulation, a place untouched by gossip, profit, or chaos. Camilla, according to these accounts, learned of the transfer in late January and immediately summoned her legal team alongside Tom Parker Bowles. To her, insiders allege the property was not sacred but a commercial opportunity, and she intended to claim it. Internal emails later said to have leaked reportedly captured her vision in a single line: "Imagine the launch from the Queen's garden to yours." Within days, a proposal was allegedly drafted under a newly registered company, with Tom Parker Bowles named as a director, aiming to rebrand the estate into a boutique hospitality and agricultural label. But the codicil, sources say, had already been notarized. The new company reportedly arrived weeks too late. Then came a leak, said to have ended that scheme entirely. An anonymous whistleblower, believed by some to be a disillusioned former aide, allegedly forwarded the company's business deck to the Lord Chancellor's office, citing an attempted commercial trespass on a sealed royal legacy. The documents reportedly revealed rebranding strategies, speculative valuations, and mock-ups of the estate with corporate logos airbrushed over its historic facade. The backlash, insiders suggest, was immediate. William reportedly confronted Camilla during a private lunch, and sources close to the household described the exchange as brief but devastating. He allegedly told her the estate did not exist to be bottled, branded, or sold, that it was the last sanctuary of his grandmother's soul, and that he would protect it as he protects his own family. Camilla, sources say, left without finishing her meal. Within 48 hours, the company had reportedly been dissolved. Then there was Greystone Downs, and here, according to these accounts, the ambition reached its peak. Valued at a reported £80 million, Greystone was allegedly the most coveted target of all. The vision attributed to Camilla and Tom Parker Bowles was staggering. Eco lodges at thousands of pounds a night, curated farm-to-table dining, a members-only culinary circle aimed at elite international clientele. All of it, critics would say, a premium brand built on the foundation of someone else's heritage. Behind the scenes, sources allege, a legal liaison had begun probing the will for any clause permitting shared custodianship, any thread that might unravel William's exclusive control. A holding company, reportedly registered abroad weeks before the will was made public, was allegedly meant to house the venture. Then Princess Anne is said to have intercepted a confidential email between Camilla's lawyer and a peer in the House of Lords and shared it with William. Her assessment, delivered in the cool, measured tone those who know her find more chilling than outrage, was reportedly simple. She's not challenging the crown, she's challenging mother's ethics. William, sources say, convened a closed-door session with his advisors, and what followed was a swift legal counter-offensive. A sealed codicil, reportedly written in the Queen's hand and notarized years earlier, is said to have explicitly barred any commercial conversion or brand exploitation of Greystone Downs without William's express approval. A palace footman allegedly described the moment Camilla read it. She reportedly read it twice in total silence, then spoke 4 words no one in that room would forget. Even in death, she leaves me caged. None of this, of course, has been confirmed by the palace. William's response, according to sources, came not in words but in action. In early February, he reportedly made an unscheduled visit to Greystone Downs with Princess Catherine and their 3 children. Cameras are said to have captured the family walking the frozen edge of the estate's lake at sunset. No statement, no press conference. Just a family on their land honoring a promise. If Greystone represented Camilla's most audacious move, then Greenheath is said to have delivered her most humiliating defeat. A vast stretch of undeveloped woodland, reportedly over 500 acres, bordering a historic Roman road and protected under a royal conservation deed, Greenheath had long been eyed, insiders suggest, as a site for high-level retreats and royal patronage programs. Camilla had allegedly coveted it, misreading a sealed section of the will and assuming Greenheath referred to little more than unused hunting ground. She was reportedly wrong. Greenheath, according to these accounts, came attached to a private trust, said to be worth some £37 million, quietly seeded over decades and personally approved by the Queen. A financial buffer that had apparently been growing invisibly in the background for years. The discovery of that fund reportedly enraged Tom Parker Bowles, who is said to have envisioned a media-branded culinary wellness centre on the land backed by foreign investors. Camilla had allegedly promised to use her position to secure royal endorsement while the king remained semi-retired. Promotional dinners were reportedly planned, elite invitations drafted, showcase menus selected, and then, according to sources, Princess Anne, acting on behalf of what's described as the Crown Trust Authority, sealed the asset transfer, and William formally received full rights to Greenheath, the £37 million trust, moving with it. That evening, a private audio recording of the Queen herself is said to have been delivered to Clarence House, explaining her wishes for the land in her own voice. Greenheath, she reportedly directed, was to become a secure legacy zone reserved for environmental education and child rehabilitation under William and Catherine's patronage. Camilla is then said to have summoned Tom Parker Bowles and 2 estate lawyers to a late-night crisis meeting. According to palace leaks, the conversation turned quickly to legal manoeuvring, with Camilla allegedly prepared to challenge the Queen's mental clarity at the time of the Greenheath deed and to claim William and Catherine had influenced an elderly monarch. It was, in effect, a posthumous attack on Elizabeth herself. The king, despite his frailty, reportedly issued a private warning within 48 hours. Any attempt to undermine the late Queen's will would be treated as an affront to the Crown's memory. When that warning is said to have leaked to the press, public reaction reportedly turned sharply against the plot. Catherine's quiet appearance at a children's hospice the same day, insiders suggest, served as the defining visual counterpoint. Dignity standing in silent contrast to scheming. Again, none of this is confirmed, and it should be read as rumour rather than record. Not long after, William reportedly arrived at the Greenheath gates alone, in a plain navy coat, with a single aide and no cameras. He is said to have signed the inaugural charter of a new trust, permanently closing the estate to commercial exploitation and codifying it under the Queen's environmental and educational vision. As the signing concluded, according to these accounts, a car appeared at the estate's edge. Camilla reportedly stepped out, dark glasses, a black folder clutched to her chest. She did not speak, she did not approach. She simply watched. Insiders allege the unfolding of a vision she could not claim, control, or reverse. By evening, she had reportedly cancelled a planned culinary event, her team issuing a single line saying the Queen regretted recent developments and supported the King's reaffirmation of the late Queen's legacy. And then came Oakridge, the last estate, and in many ways the one that reportedly said everything. A sealed envelope bearing Elizabeth II's cipher was, according to sources, formally presented to confirm the transfer of Oakridge to William. Unlike the grander royal residences, Oakridge was allegedly not bound by Crown Estate regulation, but held privately under a unique clause in the will, an untouched expanse bordering forest, reportedly used by George VI for hunting and said to contain the ruins of a Tudor chapel hidden within its grounds. Its estimated value, some £18 million, was, everyone involved reportedly understood, entirely beside the point. Oakridge insiders suggest had been the Queen's personal refuge during family disputes and the cradle of William's early summers. A final journal entry, reportedly tucked beside pressed lavender in the estate's library, spoke simply of future stewardship and the care of legacy. Even as the transfer completed, Camilla and Tom Parker Bowles are said to have stayed quiet, though whispers reportedly circulated about a possible appeal claiming Oakridge had benefited from public funds and could be reclassified. William, sources suggest, had anticipated exactly this, ordering a full review of restoration and security records stretching back decades. But the Queen, as always, had reportedly thought further ahead than anyone opposing her. The private will is said to have contained a clause barring any challenge to Oakridge by individuals outside the Windsor bloodline or married into the family after a certain date. When that clause was allegedly read aloud to senior royals, silence is said to have fallen completely. Camilla reportedly walked out. Princess Anne, who had been sitting quietly throughout, is said to have turned to the king and remarked with perfect composure that she had always known this day would come. That evening, according to these accounts, William, Catherine, and their 3 children toured Oakridge for the first time as its stewards. Young George, standing atop the old watchtower ruins and gazing across the frozen land, reportedly asked his father whether it would be theirs forever. William's answer, those present say, was calm and completely certain, as long as we protect it. Shortly after, a letter is said to have arrived from the late Queen's solicitor, carrying one final passage from Elizabeth herself, words that, insiders suggest, rendered every legal manoeuvre and commercial scheme irrelevant. If ever this estate is challenged, she reportedly wrote, let it be known Oakridge belongs not to power, but to patience. Let the one who bore the weight of the crown's future, not the burden of entitlement, carry it forward. So step back for a moment and consider what Queen Elizabeth II is reported to have achieved across these transfers. She did not simply leave properties to her grandson, she allegedly built a legal fortress around him, layer by layer, estate by estate, clause by clause, designed to withstand every challenge that ambition, commerce, and family rivalry could throw at it. She reportedly anticipated the commercial proposals. She anticipated the legal maneuvering. She anticipated the public pressure campaigns and built in responses to all of them years before they happened. And you have to ask yourself the question at the heart of all of this. Why would the Queen feel that level of protection was necessary? The answer, if these accounts hold, is not flattering for those who reportedly forced her hand. It suggests that within her own family, she identified people whose priorities were not legacy, not service, but commercial, personal, and about the transformation of centuries of royal heritage into a hospitality portfolio. Elizabeth is said to have chosen William precisely because she saw in him what those others lacked. Not ambition, not the hunger for profit or platform, but the willingness to quietly catalogue wartime letters no camera would ever film, to repair a vault no one would ever photograph, to walk the cedar groves with an elderly queen and listen more than he spoke. Stewardship. That, sources suggest, was the word she inscribed into every covenant, and it was not, she understood, a common quality. William's response to every reported attempt to circumvent her wishes has been consistent, composed, and entirely in keeping with the woman who chose him. He did not escalate publicly. He did not hold press conferences. He signed charters, walked with his children, and let the legal architecture his grandmother built speak on his behalf, and it reportedly spoke very loudly indeed. As morning broke over Windsor and pale light spilled across frost-kissed hedges, a new chapter of royal history had, if these accounts are accurate, already been written, not in ceremony or proclamation, but in the quiet, irreversible language of sealed trusts, notarized codicils, and a grandmother's handwritten certainty. For William, these estates are said to be not trophies, but responsibilities, and he has reportedly never once suggested otherwise. For Camilla and Tom Parker Bowles, insiders allege the battle is over. The estates are sealed, the covenants described as unassailable, the Queen's voice preserved in letters, legal clauses, and a private recording. Legacy, Elizabeth is said to have understood is not measured in wealth or influence or the size of a commercial portfolio. It is measured in stewardship, integrity, and the courage to protect what matters, even from those who stand closest to it. William, according to these accounts, got the estates, he got the mission that came with them, and he got something more enduring than either: the documented certainty that the woman who knew him best trusted him most.